Hi, this is Aaron Smith-Levin, and welcome back to the Growing Up in Scientology channel. So I wanted to do a video discussing the subject of how hard Scientology actually works to make its own enemies. And my personal story is actually a really good example of that, because during the time just before I got declared or kicked out of the church, I actually was not trying to get kicked out of the church. I was actually doing the complete opposite. I was trying very, very hard to actually not get kicked out of the church. And it's not because I was interested in getting more auditing or in doing more courses. It was really because every part of my life and my family's life was inextricably connected to Scientology and Scientologists. And regardless of how I felt about Scientology as a subject, I knew that if I actually got officially expelled from Scientology, it would have pretty serious consequences for me and my friends and my family, and it would kind of be a big deal. So actually at the end there, I really worked to put together like a list of prerequisites or kind of a list of agreements that would kind of allow bygones to be bygones. As long as I stuck to the agreements, I would be allowed to kind of remain in the church even though I wasn't participating, and then if I violated these agreements, then fine, I was saying, that's cool, I understand, declare me. But as it is right now, I'm not an enemy of you or the church, and if we go down this path, you're going to kind of turn me into an enemy if you try to ruin my life, and neither one of us needs that, so let's try to strike a deal here. All right, so it's hard to tell the important parts of this story without getting into a lot of background data, and I don't really want to get into all that background data on this video. So, for example, I'm not going to go into all of the details of how my mom got declared a suppressive person and kicked out of the church. I'm not going to go into all those details. But the short and accurate version of that is around 2008 or 2009, when some very high-profile and well-known former executives of Scientology started to leave the church and speak publicly. So she decided to get in touch with them and sort of find out what the hell's going on and kind of decide for herself if what they were saying was true, in her opinion. And then she did that, and then she started talking about that subject to other Scientologists. So that is, from the viewpoint of Scientology, pretty much the worst thing you could do. It's a huge no-no to say any negative things about Scientology to other Scientologists. So that's the short version of how she basically got the boot from Scientology. I also won't go into all of the details on how the church came to learn that I was still connected to my mom, even though I'd been lying for pretty much 18 to 24 months saying that I disconnected from her, I was no longer connected. But the short version of that story is that between my best friend at the time and our nanny who took after our kids, the short story is that those two basically ratted me out that I was still connected to my mom. Okay, so let's fast forward to the part where I am meeting with Daniel at Flag. So Daniel is the Chief Public Ethics Officer. He's in charge of making sure everyone is not doing bad things, and if they have done bad things, they make up enough amends, usually by donating money. So Daniel, he's the Chief Public Ethics Officer, and the church that I'm talking about is Flag. It's the giant Church of Scientology here in Clearwater, Florida, where I live. So let's just fast forward to where I'm in front of him in his office, and he's basically confronting me with the fact that, I've been busted. They know I'm in touch with my mom. And I don't deny it at this point, because there's no point. And so he's telling me in no uncertain terms that I basically have two options. Option A is you stay in Scientology and never see or speak to your mom again, which is a totally normal thing to say to someone in Scientology. Or option B, you stay connected to your mom, but you're officially expelled from Scientology and no Scientologists are allowed to have anything to do with you, whether they're your friends, your employers, your employees, your clients, or whatever. Okay, so that's the conversation we're having. In the process of having this conversation, we go over all of the policies and bulletins on the subject of what a suppressive person is supposed to be in Scientology. I'm going to do a whole other video on that, in the next coming weeks. So we go over what a suppressive person is supposed to be, and in what circumstances someone in Scientology is actually supposed to disconnect from another person. After we went over all these policies, I said, look, I'm very familiar with all these policies just the way that you are, and we just disagree. I'm like, we just have to agree to disagree that your interpretation of these policies is the only way they're intended to be used. And I said, there really should be a third option. And the third option is that I stay connected to my mom, But I stay in Scientology in sort of a limbo status, right? So instead of declaring me a suppressive person and instead of officially kicking me out of Scientology, you should just declare me PTS. And there's various kinds of PTS, but let's quickly define PTS and what the concept means. So a PTS means potential trouble source. And that means someone who isn't actually a suppressive person, but is connected to a suppressive person. And because of that connection, they're a source of trouble. They either are doing good one day, they're doing bad the next day, or maybe they're feeding data to the suppressive person, or maybe they can be influenced by the suppressive person. Let's see, the data on PTS and SP is basically that all the bad conditions in the world are created by about 20% of the population. But that of that 20%, only 2.5% are actually the truly bad guys. And the other 17.5% are just being influenced negatively by the 2.5% and are acting in ways that they wouldn't otherwise act if left to their own devices. And the analogy that I really like to use is like, let's say a group of bullies in school, right? And oftentimes you'll have like, maybe only one guy's the true dick, like the real bully, and he's got like a little posse of guys who pick on other kids so that they want to think that, so that the bully thinks they're cool. But if that bully wasn't there, those kids would be normal, decent kids. So that's kind of the concept of SP and PTS. And this concept, it does exist in Scientology, right? And I said, look, other than this one report you have from my best friend about private conversations we had in my own backyard where I said some negative stuff to him about Scientology. And I said, and by the way, he's the one who insisted on having those conversations with me. I didn't want to have those conversations with him. I said, other than that one piece of data, have you ever received a single report of me having said anything negative to anybody about Scientology ever? I said, I've been living right here in your backyard for like almost 8 years. Have you ever received one report on me? He said, absolutely not. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of surprised about, what we're learning now, that all this stuff. And I said, okay, fine. The reason you haven't received any reports on me is because I don't talk negatively about Scientology. I don't have a reason to. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to keep my friends. I'm not someone you have to worry about. And literally, that's what I said to him. I said, I'm not someone you have to worry about, okay? I'm good. I'm good if you're good, right? And I said, why don't you just do that? And I also spun it another way. I said, look, as long as I'm connected to my mom, I can sort of keep tabs on that situation, keep her under control, keep her from totally losing her shit, going off the reservation, attacking Scientology publicly in the press. I'm like, if you make me disconnect from her, she's gonna go fucking nuclear. She's like, if you ruin her life, like I was making it about her, not me. If you really mess with her in this way, you're giving yourself an enemy that you don't want, right? I wasn't even making it about me becoming an enemy, really. It was more about, about my mom. And so this is how I pitched it to him. So I said, look, if you declare me PTS, here's the terms that we can agree to. I said, I will never try to attend any Scientology events. I said, I will never try to get auditing or try to do any courses. I said, that's cool with me. I said, I don't really love getting auditing. I'm fine with that. I'm doing fine in life. Whatever, I'm good, okay? I said, if you ever get any reports that I've said anything negative about Scientology to anyone, then go ahead and declare me. But if you don't, then you know that I'm being like a good little Scientologist, and I'll know that you're at least acting in good faith, that you're not trying to ruin my life just for the hell of it. And I really tried to spin it in a way to him where we both came out on the winning side of things, as long as we just let bygones be bygones. And since I'm sitting in front of you here today doing this video, do you think that was good enough for Daniel? Do you think he was willing to say, in Scientology, we're not out to ruin people's lives, so you're right, let's just let bygones be bygones? Hell no. That was not good enough. It was, you have to do it this way or we're going to ruin your whole damn life, right? Now, fortunately for me, it did not ruin my life. I thought it was at the time. At the time, it was a big problem. I was freaking out. But things turned out very, very well for me. I'm going to get into all of those details when I do a more full-length video. But one thing I really want to say is that, to a degree, Daniel's hands were tied, right? He didn't really have the ability to make that deal with me. Because even though those policies are written in a way where you can apply them sensibly if you want to help people, or you can apply them in a very fascistic manner if you just want to screw with people, it's out of the ethics officer's hands more and more these days to make that decision for themselves. And basically, over the years, over the last 15 years or so, it's David Miscavige who has gradually but consistently tightened up how those policies are allowed to be interpreted and mandated how people have to interpret them, or else. Like if Daniel struck that deal with me, he would have wound up on the RPF. He would have wound up on the prison. It's like the prison camp of the Sea Org. And so even though the policies that people study on the subject today are the exact same policies that existed 25, 30 years ago, this is why you will commonly hear people say that, things used to be better a long time ago. Things used to be better before David Miscavige. Things weren't so militant. It wasn't all about controlling people and fundraising and, seemingly making enemies and ruining people's lives. It's not the policies that have changed. It's the interpretation of them and the implementation of them that has changed. And there's always been examples of terrible abuses, even 35, 40, 50 years ago. I'm not minimizing any of that. It's just you'll see how things have gotten worse, even though the policies have remained the same. Okay, that's my anecdote for the week. I hope it was educational. I'll be doing many more of these, probably even before my full interview comes out. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to the video, and talk to you soon.